Hi, Petra.
Oops. I won't put it down. Hello, herbal study students. This is the first weekly plant walk for Introduction to Herbal Medicine. This week we're going to concentrate on what is happening in our outdoor classroom, and right now I'm picking elderberries. And elderberries are this shrub. These are flowers. This is not elderberry. This is a wild clematis. But this is the elderberry right here, and it flowers July 4th, and right now it is August 18th. It's August 18th, and the berries are ripe, and you can collect the berries to make elderberry syrup, which is used as a flu preventative and also is full of antioxidants and can help wintertime colds and flus. And so I will be showing you eventually how to make elderberry syrup. And one of the things about it is if you don't have enough berries, like some of these aren't ripe yet. So these ones, it's almost ripe, but they're not ripe yet. And so I'm waiting for those. And so what I do is I take the ones that are ripe, I take them off the stem, and then I put them in the freezer until I have all of my berries harvested, and then I make syrup. So we'll be doing that shortly. This week in our outdoor classroom, virtual outdoor classroom, we are talking about lavender and chamomile. And we're starting with those because, first of all, they're probably really familiar to students, so it's a good welcome to come into class with a plant that you're probably familiar with. I bet you everyone is familiar with the scent of lavender. And it's a time of year in Minnesota to harvest lavender. This particular species is English lavender. It has a long stem, and it is growing right here. And we like to harvest it when it is budding instead of when the flowers open. Although if you do get one that has a few flowers open, that is okay. And the English lavender is perennial in Minnesota. Hopefully it survives. I like to cover mine with leaves or straw, and the smell is fantastic. The other species of lavender is this one, and it's a shorter version, and it takes a lot longer to bloom, so I don't know if mine will. But this is called Hidcote lavender, which is the other perennial species of lavender in Minnesota. Now, it's going to take a lot longer to bloom. I started these kind of smaller, but we'll see if by October we have some flowers on those. Otherwise, it will overwinter. And lavender is easy to grow. It does like to be dry and hot. It is a plant of the Mediterranean. And it's really expensive, but I like to grow it myself, and it has, I will dry this, but you can tincture it, you can put it into oils, you can make it into tea, you can use it in baths, which is one of my favorite ways of using lavender, and you can make pillows out of it for sleep aids. We primarily know of it in the scent of lotions, soaps, even dish soap or laundry soap, and it's a fantastic soap or lotion because it gets rid of inflammation in the skin. So whether it be blemishes or zits or bug bites, it's fantastic on bug bites topical. It will take down any redness or inflammation of the skin. So what a great thing to apply topically to the skin via lotion or soak in the bath. This is one of my favorite remedies with chamomile. The two of them are often mixed together for eczema, and so I make an eczema bath with oats, lavender, and chamomile, and people can soak in that. And you can actually, if you just have like eczema on the hands or places, you can just soak the hands and the inflammation and redness will go down and the skin can start healing. So that is some of the uses. A lesser known use of lavender, besides calming and relaxation, is for headaches. It's one of the best headache remedies. Some people just put the lavender essential oil on the temples, but you can put, you can use lavender tea or tincture. I tincture this in vodka, fresh plant. And I mix it with feverfew, which is another plant that we will look at today because it looks just like chamomile to some, except the leaves are different. And feverfew and lavender together is one of the most famous Western herbalism headache remedies. And it works really well to kind of bring down just a lot of stuff going on in the head. So, you know, we might say it like cools the head. And all of this is due to the essential oils, which are highest when the flower is in bud. Now, we generally just see the flowers for sale, but the whole stem can be used. You can tincture the stem. It all has essential oils in it. And so if I were to make a tincture, I would cut up the whole plant. And the essential oils, even when dried, last for 10 years because essential oils are little pockets of oil on the flowers. And it actually protects the flower from insects, from microorganisms, from fungus, all sorts of stuff. And so that's what those essential oils are doing. And we can use those essential oils as antimicrobial or antifungal. And in scientific research, lavender has been shown to be a very strong antifungal and strong antibiotic against different types of staph. And so we can see why using that on the skin can help balance our microbiome on the outside of our body by using it on our skin. So just a fantastic plant, very versatile. And, you know, I was always taught that lavender was like having your grandma bake chocolate chip cookies for you when you're stressed out. And it is like that. So taking it can help with mild depression, like a bath with lavender can help with mild depression. Smelling it can help with mild depression, but it's just a fantastic, beautiful, beautiful purple flowered plant that we're probably all very familiar with. Now, when dried, I like to keep the lavender flower together. So here are dried flowers, and I try not to crush them, and I try not to process them too much, so that when I want to use the dried herb, it has all the essential oils available. So these can dry down rather small into dried lavender, and you can store that for winter use. And it is kind of mid-August here, and it's time to get all of our herbs for the winter time. And this smells stronger than the fresh plant. So this is chamomile, which is maybe really familiar because it is a tea that I have never been without. You can go to any restaurant or grocery store and they will probably have chamomile tea on the shelves or available for purchase. And chamomile is extremely easy to grow. You can grow it by seed. This particular one here is Roman chamomile, and it is a taller species of chamomile. There are many different varieties of chamomile, one being Egyptian, and One is German, which I also grow. The Egyptian one doesn't grow as well here, but there are many different varieties of chamomile. One thing about growing it is you have to come almost every day to harvest the flowers, and the more you harvest the flowers, so I harvested this yesterday and I have flowers today, and it has lots of flowers lined up. And the more you harvest the flowers, the more chamomile you get. So if you harvest every day, I harvested all of these yesterday. I harvested the whole plant yesterday, and now I have all of these flowers, and they just really like to be harvested. And for chamomile, you only harvest the flowers and no other part of the plant. And I don't know why that is, but that is just how it goes. So it is only the flowers. For mass production, they have flower grates that you can just scrape all the flowers off with, but that kind of harms the plant, so I like to harvest mine individually. And every day you can come out and grab flowers. You can dry them, you can tincture them, you can make oils, body oils out of them. They can be made into glycerides. So lots of things that you can do with chamomile flowers, which is good because if you grow them, you always have plenty of chamomile flowers. And the uses of chamomile that we think about are, a lot of people use it to relax at the end of the day or for sleep aids. And what's interesting though is that lavender, which is our other plant, and chamomile are somewhat similar because even though they smell completely different. And where lavender is in the Lamiaceae family, chamomile is in the Asteraceae family. And it has kind of the same thing where it helps a bit with digestion. Lavender does, but chamomile really helps with digestion. Chamomile helps with headaches. Chamomile helps with inflammation of the skin, and so I often put chamomile and lavender together. And so it dries fairly quickly. Now I have to get this. And the dried flowers look a lot like that. And then you can dry them and keep them for the winter, or add them to baths or lotions or whatever when dried. So there's a lot that you can do with chamomile. And the flowers tend to fall apart, and so when you buy product in the store, you sometimes end up with just kind of this like look of just a whole bunch of little stuff in there. But I try to not process my flowers too much to keep them a little bit whole, because I think it's prettier when you're putting it into a tea. So chamomile also gets rid of inflammation on the skin. One of my favorite steams is for facial steams is chamomile and lavender, and it's also my favorite bath. The way that chamomile or lavender help with sleep is that they don't make you tired. They actually just turn on the parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve, and it relaxes the body and puts it in the parasympathetic mode, which is the mode of digestion, rest, contemplation, relaxation. And so it's not going to make someone drowsy. So you could take it in the morning. It's not going to make you sleepy in the morning. It's just going to make you more focused. And so there's a lot of herbalists that would, instead of coffee, take chamomile if they had a big day, because it just makes them relaxed and present. Chamomile and lavender are often mixed together in teas. The great thing about chamomile, so when I think about just why is chamomile, after there's not many other versatile herbs that were kept in commerce in the United States for a very long time, or weren't popularized, and there wasn't a big marketplace, like chamomile was still widely available. And I just wonder sometimes, is it because it helps calm children? And we don't want to give up chamomile because we know that it does help. with children's tantrums. But it helps all sorts of things for children. So it is antimicrobial and can help with colds and flus and viral upper respiratory infections. It can thin the mucus in the nose, like if a kid has, even an adult, if the nose is stuffed. But the neat thing is that it is a relaxing diaphoretic. So if someone has a fever, it can help kind of lower the fever by moving the blood to the surface, while being antimicrobial, antiviral, while thinning out the mucus, while helping the kids sleep. So there really isn't a better thing to have in a formula for colds and flus for children, and is safe with babies. One lesser known trick with having chamomile, and you can have chamomile as a tincture, is as a first aid use, is a use for shock and trauma. And so, a lot of times when a kid gets hurt, they might have been more scared than actual physical pain, and so they first come to you kind of screaming or crying, and they don't want you to touch them, and you can put chamomile under their tongue, and they will instantly relax and calm so that you can assess the situation. And this is my first aid herb, always for children, and my children. And if they get in shock or something terrible happens, you can just give a little chamomile and they'll just come right back in their body, and they'll be able to talk to you about it and go out of shock. And I've had instances where like something bad happened and the child is crying and screaming, and you put chamomile under the tongue and then they start giggling and laughing. So it's pretty remarkable how quickly it can bring a kid out of shock and trauma. So it's a shock and trauma herb. It is a fever herb. It is an anti-inflammatory herb. It does help with headaches, and it is a anti-spasmodic herb. So the neat thing is that this helps with spasmodic pain, whether it be in the bowels, the stomach, like any type of tummy upsets. It's going to calm all of that type of pain. And it also helps with menstrual cramps. And I know some females who just use it when they're feeling crampy, and it can cause the cramps and help you relax, help you sleep. So the specific indications for usage is when someone feels, for emotional stuff, is when someone feels extremely irritable and reactionary and wants everyone to leave them alone and doesn't want anyone to touch them and wants to be left alone, and they're upset and angry, and they're not speaking nicely to somebody. And it's also used for children's tantrums, which it works very well. And it is not always, it is kind of a strong tasting tea, so you can add different flavors to it. You can add lemon balm, you can add mint to it. My children like mint, and they call it camel mint tea, and they like to mix that together. So it's just a very versatile herb. It's everywhere. It's good to know about it. It's sometimes, if I, tell a client to use chamomile, they think, that they probably could have thought that themselves. So just lovely herb to think about. So this here is feverfew, and it might, we might get it mixed up with chamomile. And so here's chamomile and here's feverfew, and a lot of people get it mixed up because it has that same kind of bud on top and the little white leaves on the outside of it. Feverfew is another anti-inflammatory, and the flowers are used. And so when you dry them, you kind of have to remember which one is your feverfew basket. They're a little bit larger than chamomile flowers, but we can tell it's feverfew because of the leaf is very different than a chamomile leaf. And the chamomile leaf is more spindly, thinner. It kind of looks like fennel, and so very different than this leaf that looks like a chrysanthemum. And feverfew is called Tinactium parthenium, and this is the remedy that goes along with lavender in a headache formula. And feverfew is a prostaglandin inhibitor that also actually would work well with chamomile for cramping pain. It has the ability to stop inflammation and actually for people that have chronic headaches, it actually will stop the production of the prostaglandins that cause headaches. And so if someone has migraines a lot, they can use this as a preventative, but they have to take it every day. But even if you don't take it every day, having lavender and feverfew together will lessen the duration of any headaches. So feverfew is called feverfew because it brings down fevers. And so it does work a bit like ibuprofen. And it's different than the diaphoretic herbs. So this is called an antipyretic. So this will actually take down the fevers, much like an ibuprofen, about 2 degrees, much like ibuprofen. Whereas chamomile is a diaphoretic, and it's cooling off the body by moving blood to the surface, which is different. Feverfew isn't doing that. Feverfew is working on the prostaglandins. So another fantastic plant to have in the garden. It is a perennial. It will eventually take over a space. It likes to spread. But I wanted to show it to you because it looks a lot like chamomile, and it can be very confusing with that. Another herb, as long as we're out on our outdoor classroom, and for those of you that have come to the yard, hopefully you'll see these in flower. The other herb is this very small flower. Hi, kitty. Is this very small flower. And you may see this. I was just up north in the Boundary Waters and saw this all along the lakes. And it likes a wet place, but it can grow in the shade. Feverfew is a shade plant. And skullcap, Scutellaria laterifolia, is a very bitter herb, and it is used for shock and trauma and really high anxiety. So it is a fantastic herb to have. It took me a really long time to get to know skullcap, and I've just used it more and more and more in formulas. But my favorite trick with this one is that for adults, chamomile for the shock and trauma probably isn't strong enough, but skullcap, you put that under the tongue of someone that just had a bike accident or even a serious injury, you give them skullcap under the tongue and it will calm them down and put them back in their body. It is fantastic. And with skullcap, we harvest the whole stem. And I make tinctures of it because I never have enough, and it doesn't taste very good dried. It's extremely bitter. So I put this in vodka, and I chop it up from the fresh plant and put it right into vodka. And this is a plant that you can grow in a shade place. Obviously, it might not be the most beautiful garden plant. They do not sell it in stores. You have to buy seeds. But it doesn't give the most attention. But there are so many people that are going through high anxiety and other issues like that, and skullcap is the remedy. And it can be mixed with passion flower. It likes to pair with for a nighttime strong sleep aid that will put someone to sleep. Blooming right now, August 20th, is blue vervain, Verbena hastata. And this you will also find, like skullcap, you will find in wetland areas, but you can grow it in your garden. Again, it's not the most attractive standing out plant, but the bees just go nuts for it. And I only harvest 1/3 of the flowers off of any given plant so that it reseeds in my garden. And I only harvest the flowers. When you buy product in the store, you end up with both leaves and flowers. And I just harvest the flowers, and it ends up to be a very black tincture. And it's extremely bitter. And this is the North American species. It is my favorite, vervain. There is a European species that's also called verbena, and that one's Verbena officinalis, or vervain, and that was the plant that was prized by the Druids. Now, the more I've learned about blue vervain, the more I fell in love with it, and I have used blue vervain for a very long time, and for this little chapter here, because we're going to have more on this, but I wanted you to see the flowers, because it may not be flowering when we start talking about verbena. It is really good for high anxiety and the feeling that you need to control things. And I think right now, having an herb where people, when we're dealing with a lot of unknowns and a lot of things thrown at us, I think it's really great to think about an herb that kind of helps relax our mind and our need for controlling things, people, just whatever is happening, and kind of like just help us go with the flow, which is what this kind of extreme bitter plant does. And it helps us kind of let go of expectations that we have for other people or for things, and be able to think more creatively or collaboratively about our situations. So it's a great herb, I think, during a time when there are so many unknowns, and probably a lot of people could benefit from it. Very bitter. Even smells bitter. It even smells. I can do. So just to show you, here is blue vervain getting ready for tincture. And it's in brandy, and it's been sitting for about 4 weeks. It's not quite black yet, but if I shake it enough, eventually there'll be a very black tincture. And so all you do is put it in a jar, and I do the fresh flowers, and put it into brandy, and I end up with a blue vervain tincture. But it can also be dried for tea. So I was going to make these videos shorts, but it's mid-August, and like we have that feeling of fall, and there's just so much to harvest. If you planted your garden or you get out in nature, it doesn't matter. Like, there's a lot of stuff available. But another garden plant that I love planting, and I never even have to buy the seeds because I collect the seeds myself and then throw them back in the ground, and I get the plants again. And so basically, if you have any real estate where you can put a garden in, you can have calendula with you whenever you want. And this is Calendula officinalis. And calendula is much like chamomile because the more you harvest it, the more flowers you get. It actually enjoys being harvested. So you have to harvest this one every day. And I actually harvested every single blossom off of my calendula yesterday. And I will let these go because they're a little young. But now, today, I am full of blossoms again. And these are resinous and sticky, and it just sticks to your hands, and they start sticking together and bugs stick to them, and you want that resin. So if you are picking your calendula and your hands don't start sticking and getting yellow resin all over them, you want to harvest a different calendula, because it's actually the resins in the plant that are important, and it's also what makes it important for putting in a high-grade alcohol or heating the oil. But we are going to talk about calendula more and its uses. I just couldn't help myself because I harvested it yesterday, and it just had a feeling that they wanted some attention today too while we're making this video. And they are growing right next to the lavender, and it looks like I missed some lavender to harvest. But this calendula, you just flip the tops off and you put them to dry, and you come back the next day and harvest some more. And they're on the same plant, can be dark orange and yellow flowers on it. So just fantastic, easy herb to grow, and we will learn more about the benefits on another one of our. So with dried chamomile, you can throw it in a jar, and with grapeseed oil, which is fairly inexpensive, or olive oil. And this one has been sitting for a while. And this oil can be made into a cream, into a salve when you mix it with wax, beeswax. And it can be used topically. There's a few calendula flowers in there. Usually you heat those, but so this is how an oil is made. And you definitely want to use dried flower material. And it doesn't smell too strong of chamomile, but this oil will be great to make a lotion with. And so you pour the bag. I use cheesecloth bag or like a muslin bag. Sorry, this is muslin. And then you can squeeze out the oil to save for later. And you can even have it drip if you don't want to get your hands full of oil when it's a hot day in the summer. And it turns into a beautiful, beautiful gold looking oil that can be used for all sorts of things. And this is a very healing oil for the skin. With the chamomile, and it just turns a lovely golden color. And it was in this one was made in grapeseed oil, so the oil was more kind of greenish tinge. So all of this color comes from the flowers that were put into it. And then you can save this oil if you're scared that it will go rancid. Now when you use dried herbs, like dried chamomile, it probably won't go rancid. It mostly has like an oil smell to it, not a chamomile smell to it, but you can always add in scents. And you just squeeze, and then you can let this sit over a jar overnight. And so that, I'm not going to do all that right now, but that is one of the products that you can use with dried calendula flowers, is making an oil. And I'm going to leave that right here for right now while I wash my hands. And that is our chamomile and lavender plants of the week. First week of our plant walk. And here is calendula oil. And I know I have a little bit of like things I need to get out of there. And maybe one more pass through. But this oil will be liquid gold. For skin, and if we're thinking about wintertime coming and dry skin or irritated skin, this oil will be perfect. This is also a fantastic oil for those with eczema or those that have to wash their hands a lot because they work in hospitals, and it is a very healing oil for cracked and irritated skin, whether it's from washing the hands too much or eczema.